Hi, everybody. It's Kim West, the Sleep Lady. And on this episode of the Gentle Parenting Show, I am so excited to talk with Samantha Moe. Her specialty as a certified parent coach is working with emotionally intense children, 3 years of age. And we certainly know about if you ever have one of those children, I had one, then you know how needed this information is for our own sanity as a parent, and also so we feel like we can kind of get a handle on parenting these kids and really help them. So welcome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, of course, I shared with everybody your bio and how you have this revolutionary brain and nervous system based parenting approach. Tell us, let's dive in and tell us about, how you came to this on how to really help these emotionally intense kids and how they need to be parented in a different way.
Absolutely. I mean, just like gentle sleep program, right? Like there's a different way of doing things depending on your kid and your own temperament as an adult. So I work with families with kids ages 3 and up. So it can go all the way through the teenage years. And you know when you have an emotionally intense kid, like you said, sometimes you know from birth the way that they look at you, especially if you have a different kid. You're like, whoa, this kid's spicy. So I have a master's degree in communication disorders. I graduated from UM in Minnesota in 2004. And I worked with kids with autism. And I was like really typical, bright and shiny, bushy-tailed outside of school, loved John Lennon and the Beatles. All you need is love. Like all these good things going into the school to work with kids with autism and learn friendship skills and how to have self-control. And I remember this little boy who was 8 years old, Charlie, who really challenged me. I would need to transition him from his classroom to my office to work on really nice things like getting along with others and being invited to birthday parties. And I remember consistently, he would melt down about 10 steps away from my office, in the hallway, outside the cafeteria doors, middle of the day. Teachers would be peering through me, feeling really concerned, like, what are they thinking? Are they thinking, like, how is Samantha going to handle it this time? Right. And one moment in particular, looking down at Charlie, who's kicking, saying those things that you never want to hear a child scream at you in front of others, especially. Mm-hmm. And as a sweat rolled down my back, I thought, I have no idea what to do here. Mm-hmm. Boy, was that a life-changing moment to have 6 years of higher education, specializing in the field, and not knowing how I could make a difference in this kid's life, because love in this moment wasn't enough. Yeah. So I'm not embarrassed to say now, at this point in my life, that I bribed him and brought him back to the room. And I went into my office. I closed the door, turned off the light, put my head in my hands, and I thought, maybe I chose the wrong job. So it sounds like we're going backwards, and we are a little bit. And I thought, maybe I chose the wrong job. And I know that this is a thought that parents have at times too, like, what did I get myself into? Fortunately, I was raised in a family of 7, and my mom's voice popped into my head of every child has gifts. And so I started doing research to find out an answer to how do you draw out intense children's gifts. I looked at brain science, sensory processing, play therapy, the science of mindfulness, and began to recognize a pattern that wasn't super clearly spelled out, but ultimately it was the key and the lens to look at these kids from here forward. And it was, in order to help a child connect and relate, their brain needs to feel calm and it needs to feel safe. So it became my mission. I mean, absolutely, this is my calling. It became my mission and my calling to figure out relationship strategies when you have an intense child that helps their brain feel calm and safe so that they feel good and we feel good. Yeah. We get listening, we get cooperation, we see them grow and thrive. And that was the beginning of me creating my 8-week parent curriculum, Mad to Glad Blueprint.
And you know what? I would say the same thing for babies. In order for them to really be able to calm and to, let's say, go to sleep, they need to feel, safe and all is well. And they need us to be in a calm, centered place too. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so I'm going to geek out. I know we were geeking out before we hit record here. I'm going to geek out a little bit on the brain science behind that in a really friendly way. So don't be scared if you're listening to this right now and you don't like brain science. And that is that we have mirror neurons inside our brain. So your mirror neurons reflect the state another person is in. So if I see Charlie laying on the floor and I lose my cool and I'm like ranting and raving, not just am I role modeling that, I am teaching the neural pathway in his brain that this is our baseline level of intensity. The other thing that's happening is when he's losing his stuff, my mirror neurons trigger too. So now, underneath any behavior, emotions, child or adult, the fight or flight stress system is flaring up. That means your adrenaline, your cortisol, this very primitive bear chasing you through the woods survival mechanism, is fired up, even though all you asked your baby to do was to please go to sleep tonight because I'm exhausted and sleep deprived, and it's good for you. But the baby is responding if you're doing it in a very fearful way, as if you're like setting them down in a pit of snakes. Like if you're fearful about that, everybody's mirror neurons are going to bounce off of each other, create more of what I now call fire in the brain.
Yeah.
And you just can't make progress in relationship, self-regulation, listening, or ease if there's fire in the brain.
All right. So I'm sure everybody can relate to this because I know I can. So what do we do? Where do we start?
Yeah, well, you think about a campfire, you got to put the fire out. I chuckle a little bit because sometimes we think, well, in this moment, if I just had better strategies or if I just had better discipline strategies, that's what's going to help Charlie listen.
Right.
But really, what we learned from Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's a leading neuroscientist out of UCLA in the area of child development, is he talks about downstairs brain and upstairs brain. So what we're saying right now of fight or flight, this is your downstairs brain, adrenaline and cortisol flooding, it's getting in the way. You can't do upstairs brain. So what we don't do is we don't try to do our upstairs brain things. I'll tell 3 of them. One is problem solving. So we don't say, Charlie, what could we do right now instead of kicking your feet and screaming, I hate you? That's not going to work when there's a fire.
Right.
We don't try to use a paying attention strategy. This is classic in autism, ADHD, little kids. I have a year and a half-year-old at home. We're not like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. Nope, we don't do you don't do like a paying attention strategy right now.
Right.
And if your child really is losing it and has fire in the brain, we also don't do the very well-meaning behavior strategy. So in schools in particular, I love take 5 breathing. You breathe in, you breathe out. You breathe in, you breathe out. You crouch down on the floor next to a child who's screaming and kicking, and you try to do this, and they're probably going to shove your hand away.
Right.
On the mild side.
Right.
So we become aware that all of these things are too high. They contribute to more fire in the brain. And so instead, we work with our mirror neurons and we say, how do I role model the example of grounded and safe because it is foundational to the brain needs? How do I show calm and safe because I can access it? My brain's fully developed. So we have a mantra.
Which isn't developed until 25. Important for everyone
or more, right?
Right. Yes.
Yes.
I remind the parents of young children, but also teenagers, that they don't have their frontal lobe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's so common for a parent to think like, well, but my 9-year-old knows what to do.
Right.
Yeah, but they're still 2 decades away from having a fully developed brain. Or my brother is probably going to listen to this podcast, but when he was 20 years old and still living at home, he was driving around in his little Buick with his friends at night, running into those plastic garbage trucks to knock them over after the garbage had been emptied out, right? Like the brain's just not fully developed at 9 years old or 20 years old.
Yep.
So my starting point, this is going to sound simple. There's complexity behind it. There's a lot of brain science behind it. But my starting point with you as a parent is the calm mantra. Calm body, calm voice, calm face. So if there's a moment you can think of when your child, where you're just like so sick of repeating yourself and they're throwing a fit, you say, it's time to turn off your game and come eat dinner. Sometimes I'll hear families say like, but I am calm. Well, tell me more about the situation. And they'll say, I told them, turn off your game and come eat dinner. And the voice is edgy. The fists are clenched by the side. The face is all scrunched with, mirror neurons. Babies and, kids are picking up on this, these nonverbals. So the calm mantra is the starting point, is soften your body, soften your voice, soften your face.
I love it. Sometimes I'm sure easier said than done.
A lot of times. I mean because how do you practice calm if you're living in the modern world of so that? I had a client who said, Samantha, you're asking me to be calm with my 11-year-old, but I live in a world of so that. I get up at 5:30 in the morning so that I can work out on the treadmill for half an hour, so that I can help all 6 of my kids wake up, eat breakfast, get out the door, get to school, so that I can do my errands, paperwork, housework, so that I can be there for snack time, dinner time, homework time, so that I can help them all get into bed at 10 o'clock at night, so that I can then go to bed and drop into it exhausted, only to begin again the next day.
That's good. I haven't heard this so that day. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally a mom here in Minnesota, Eagan, Minnesota, who shared that with me. So we talk about how modern life is the world of so that. And if we're ever in a parent coaching session, or you're a well-meaning practitioner guiding a parent and saying, you got to stay calm, we can't just stay calm. We need to look at, how is your life, and do you have enough practices during your day to calm the fire? Because otherwise every little thing's going to trigger you.
Right. And that's hard to do. I think, I'm sure it's hard for dads, but I'll just speak to myself, for myself as a woman and a mom, is that, so often we are the last on the list, even though we all know, we're all told, put your oxygen mask on first. But a lot of times, you're go, focusing on your child, and you get depleted yourself. I mean, good for that mom who got up early to at least get 30 minutes a day of exercise just for her. I think there's a lot of parents who aren't doing things like that.
Yeah. And that's so classic when we start talking about, we never start the day on the right foot. We leave the door. Somebody's always crying in the morning. There's always a meltdown in the morning. And so I start asking, how's the fire in the brain when they get out of bed? How's the fire in the brain when you get out of bed? And then we want to start layering in other strategies like, well, what helps the brain feel safe when you have limited time?
Oh, let's talk about that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have limited time, then there's some really simple relationship strategies. Again, kind of, there's a lot behind it, but what we know is that if you can help a child connect to their emotions, meaning you're with them in that emotional state, you're labeling the emotion, it increases the bond and connects them to you. So sometimes you see I'm just going to use, different age kids, you see your 7-year-old stomping around in the morning when they're getting their backpack and their lunch ready. And we just kind of might walk on eggshells, like just do whatever we can to avoid the outburst. When instead, if you can help label their emotion, it creates ease in the body. So I call this emotion coaching. So you recognize your 7-year-old and you can say something like, you're kind of stomping around this morning. It seems like you're upset. And it's what it does is it helps the emotional brain feel really met and seen. Now, what the 7-year-old might do is, I am upset because this happened on the playground and I don't want to see my friend anymore. And then I didn't finish this and you were mean to me. And they start like venting and blaming and possibly attacking and, something that you've done. But we do that as humans to relate to each other. It's very much like when I was first married, I don't know, 2014, my pediatric chiropractor husband, really low key, really gentle. He works with babies and families, grew up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, 5'10", brown hair, golfed in his free time. Like, sounds really conflict avoided, like that sounds like it could be a really low key life. But he came home one day from work after we each had our long days. And I'm standing in front of my cutting board and carrots and celery are flying because I'm a little bit more dramatic than he is. And he looks at me and he goes, "Honey, tough day?" And I look back at him. Yeah, it was a really tough day. And he pauses and it's almost like he's scanning the room like, what should I say next? And he says, "Buck up. Tomorrow's a new day, honey." Nope. Nope. So being interested in reading and research into human dynamics, I found the book, many people know about it, by Dr. John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And the way that he describes, and of course it's a gender-specific book, but he says, in general, women tend to be emotional processors and men tend to be Mr. Fix-It in the way they communicate. So we practiced Ty acknowledging my emotions because, in that first scenario, the rest of our evening is crap because I'm like closed in, like you don't understand me. So after about a couple of weeks of practicing this strategy in low-key moments, the same scenario presents itself. He comes home, I'm in front of my stove, my stainless steel wok, making a bunch of noise with my metal spatula. And he's like, "Whoa, tough day?" And I look at him and we both know it's the moment of truth. He scans the room. He walks over, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "I can tell you look really upset." Good. And how do I respond? "I am really upset." And I have to tell him everything that went wrong from when I first got out of bed and now it's 10 hours later. So if men are from Mars and women are from Venus, how come we never considered that the way kids communicate, they're like these little Martians from, I used to say Pluto because it used to be a planet and then it wasn't and then it is. Like, of course we're confused. Right. We have different communication styles. So when a child has fire in the brain or big emotions, when we acknowledge it, our adult perspective is, can I just get this to stop? Right. Can we just move on? I live in a world of so that I got to get out the door. I got to get to work on time. I got to get you to school. That's my responsibility.
It's not a big deal.
But they need to process. Right. Yeah. "Oh, life is so hard. You're a kid." Sarcastically. Right. So I just poured out a lot there. So that's what we do is we connect with them emotionally and we slow down and we create some simplicity and space to let them have their feelings and hold the space while they have them. Dr. Daniel Siegel, again, because he's just a leader in the field, he calls the strategy "name it to tame it." Like, if you can name how your child's feeling, an empathy conversation might take 3 or 5 minutes or 10 or 12 minutes, depending on the age and the situation and the severity. But it helps when you connect a kid to their emotions, it connects them to you.
And then I would imagine after that, you can go through what they could do with those big emotions. And
Yeah. We're walking up. I know this is podcast, so I don't have my slides in front of me, but we're basically walking through. I have a graphic of the 3 C's in the brain. Like, if you can calm the fire, then you work on this middle level brain of connection. For you brain nerds out there, this is your limbic system. You start walking up the staircase. Well, now we have what you call the prefrontal cortex. We have upstairs brain access. So we've got calm, connect. Now we get collaboration. So we say, "Hey, that was really upsetting. Yeah, you were really upset this morning. I saw that." Give them space. Let them share more or blame you or point the finger, whatever. And you just acknowledge, "Yep, I see you. Or I know you were frustrated. How do you think I was feeling?" "Mean. You just didn't want to be late." "Okay, but how do you think I was feeling?" "You were mad too." "Yeah, I was mad too." So the magic question becomes, after you've been calm and connected emotionally, what do you think we could do differently tomorrow so we both feel happy? And sometimes kids here will answer this question beautifully. This goes back to my early days. It's called hypothetical problem solving. "Well, I just won't yell at you. I'll just get my backpack and get out." You're like, "That's not going to happen, whatever." So you say, "Well, okay, that might be something you can do. What could we both do so that it runs really smoothly? And now you create little prompts or keywords or signals or visual charts so that everybody knows, and you're collaborating and you're working together. Because the thing about kids who are more emotionally intense is they have a psychological need for control. And so they really, really need to collaborate with you. They really need that voice. I do need the red spoon instead of the blue spoon. Like, they need that control, because if they're controlling you in other situations, that can mean they're not getting enough control in situations that are smaller, where they really need that to feel psychologically safe. So they have a strong need for their voice to be heard. They have a strong need for input. And if we just keep raining down the rules from heaven, this is our morning chart. When you do this, you break a rule. This is your discipline. You haven't collaborated and checked in on emotions. You're putting the cart way before the horse up here. And so for me, a lot of it is, hey, let's work on the first 2 C's in the brain, and then we can get to the next one.
Makes total sense. I love this. So tell us in the last couple, few minutes we have. I know that you're going to give me a link for all the listeners so they can get your amazing, in a great PDF on, what was it called again? The 11 reasons.
Yeah, the 11 reasons emotionally intense kids act up.
Awesome. Can't wait.
11 things that you do as a parent that causes them to act up and have fire in the brain.
So these are going to be the 11 things we want to avoid, obviously. And then also you offer classes, obviously online, it sounds like, or tell us a little bit about that too.
Yes. So I'm based in St. Paul, Minnesota, but the beautiful thing is a lot of us learn online these days. So while I do work with people locally, individually, I also teach my 8-week Mad to Glad Blueprint, which is basically an 8-week parenting class where you get one strategy a week, including the brain science behind it, so you understand why. And as you can hear today, it's very friendly instead of intimidating. So that you can really see what's happening beneath the behaviors, and it shines light on why some of the other advice you've been given doesn't work for your kid. So I do the Mad to Glad Blueprint 2 times a year. And like I said, 8-week commitment. We do some spot coaching in a group so you can hear from other families and how to really customize strategies when you have a more complex family dynamic.
And it looks like on your website, people can also work with you one-on-one or one of your trained coaches. Is that right?
Exactly. Or we have an online directory with certified parent coaches listed as well.
Awesome. And so I love one of the approaches I heard you say, which I use this with families with sleep, is that I always think it's helpful if we can understand why we're seeing the behavior that we're seeing in our children, because then it helps us figure out what we need to change within ourselves and within parenting in general, which then can help get that connection and collaboration with our children. Because in the end, we can't make them poop on the potty, eat broccoli, or go to sleep.
That's right. That's right. Don't force those things. Potty, eating, sleeping.
So, and we obviously can't really force them into all these other behaviors too. So I love how you focus on that, the calm, connect, and collaborate. Right? Did I get those 3 C's right?
You did. Yeah. And you speak to a point that's worth making, which is, at this point in my career, I don't only work with kids with autism, because when you're looking at the relationship needs calm, connection, and collaboration strategies, this works for, the good news is it works for the most intense kids, but it also works for the kids who are boundary testers. They're spirited, they're strong-willed, they have more of these characteristics of having a need for control, they're more demanding. So this parenting approach matches their brain wiring, since they just tend to be more intense, and there's no diagnosis needed. Once you start mapping some of these out and applying them, you can create more peace at home with any kid.
I was just going to say that with any kid. Doesn't even have to be an intense kid, but maybe we have to be sort of more diligent with our emotionally intense kids. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get by when you have a kid that has a harmonious or pleasing temperament, which I had growing up. Once I hit 30 a while ago, it was like, I don't know what happened, but I got more fight rather than freeze in my body, more than flight. Um, and yeah, I lost my train of thought right
Just
there.
that I was saying that this is good for even not emotionally intense kids, all children,
Yeah.
and in parenting in
Yep,
general.
absolutely. Oh, right. And so when you have a kid that has more of a harmonious temperament, you can go into your default parenting styles. You can be bossy and
Right.
controlling and my way or the highway, because they're going to listen because they want to please you. But with your intense kids, if they're intense and you match them, that's your learning curve right there. Is you need a
Yeah.
different style.
Oh, I love that. Because I think so often in, as my areas of specialty with sleep and potty training, lots of times other parenting coaches don't factor in not only the child's temperament, but the parents and that match or mismatch, and how that
That's
can
right.
make it even harder, so that everything becomes a power struggle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you got a two-parent household, and one of them might have more fire in the
That's
brain.
true.
And now we're like, someone's trying to compensate for that by being soft. And the beautiful thing about parent coaching is that one of the best feedback that I get is that we feel like we're on the same page. Because truly, when you understand what's happening beneath your child's behavior and you do a little work around what are our goals, for the most part, parents have the same outcomes. They just don't know how to get there. And so once you have an action plan and you can trust that the techniques are going to work and you practice with them, then it increases your confidence and full family
Love
fulfillment.
it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Samantha. Is there anything, like any sort of like favorite little wisdom parenting nugget you'd like to share before we go?
Yes, I love the proverb. It's a proverb where I think it's a Japanese proverb that asks, "When was the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. And when is the second best time? It's today." And so because of neuroplasticity and what we know about fire in the brain, you can start at any age, just like sleep, gentle sleep training or practice that program. It's like you can start at any age because the brain is plastic and it's moldable, yours and your kids. So take heart. Change can be around the corner if
Awesome.
you want it.
Here. I agree with you 100%. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And
Thanks
if
so
you want to
much.
learn more about Samantha Moe and her Mad to Glad blueprint, we will be listing everything on our sleeplady.com /podcast page, along with how to follow her on social media and download her amazing PDF. So thank you so much. Thank you again.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.